and welcome to GameSack. We are talking about retro video game mags this time around.
That's right, and I'm sorry for all you guys who actually want some game reviews. We're going to put a hiatus on that for right now and get back to that. We thought we'd do something a little bit different. And,
yes, but it still has to do with gaming, and this is how we got our news back then, and it was really fun way back then.
It was fun, waiting by the mailbox every month.
Yeah, or going to these stores and seeing if they have the new issue.
Yes, that's right.
Anyway, let's get started and covering some of these issues that we picked out.
My first pick is the November-December 1989 issue of Nintendo Power. This was in the early days of Nintendo Power when the magazine was released every other month. Let me tell you how I hated this. I would read the whole magazine and have to wait over a month and a half for the next issue. It was pure torture. Hell, I would even read about the crap games just to waste time. As you can see, Tetris made the cover of this issue, and that's fine by me since Tetris is one of my favorite games. An interesting cover with art that shows a person getting Tetrisized. Also, why in the hell is this guy driving around in a loafer? How strange. After reading the good parts of the magazine, I would turn to the more boring parts like the Player's Pulse, where people would send in all sorts of stuff. Like this letter from a 75-year-old dude who likes Zelda, or this kid who wonders why the power light on his control dick keeps flashing. Who made the typo, the kid or the transcriber? Here's a little Tetris help from Nintendo's Howard Phillips. I actually thought these tips were useful, and it really did help my Tetris skills. Nintendo made the best Tetris games ever. Nintendo Power was such a great resource for gamers before the internet. Take Iron Sword here for the NES. Full blown out maps of the first two levels including placements of everything you need to collect. Every issue of Nintendo Power also came with a two-sided poster. Every now and again they would throw something extra in, like this Dragon Warrior strategy guide. A 35-page extra for free, and I did use this guide to help me with the weapons, items, armor, and special items. The Game Boy was released 3 months before this issue. Here's a quick guide with launch titles and titles that were coming out soon. I was so stoked to see Castlevania in all its yellow and gray glory. Only one more month and it was gonna be mine. Counselor's Corner was always a favorite part of an issue. Game counselors would answer questions and solve problems people were having completing games. Pack Watch was also a highlight as well, since you could get a glimpse of games that would be coming out in the near future. This is where the seeds were planted and started to grow ideas on how I, a kid without an income, would possibly be able to get money to buy these games. What a great mag.
My first pick for no particular reason is Game Fan Volume 1, Issue 3. First off, I've never really cared for this numbering scheme. Just call it Issue 3. Anything else just confuses my little brain. The review section in this mag was cool because they always reviewed a ton of different games. Granted, they always seemed to rate them really high, but it was still really fun to read. They even reviewed import games. Unfortunately, you almost had to squint to read these reviews. I like this review for Battle Clash. So very informative. The following pages are just many of the same games that were reviewed featured in their own giant layout. What the hell is wrong with Mickey's head here? Game Fan was often praised for its layouts, but I found them a bit hard to read sometimes due to the clashing colors and poor design choices. Talk about burning your eyeballs. But like I said, it was still really fun to read. In this issue's preview section, they show some pics from Sonic CD that I don't recall seeing in the game. Too bad too, because it looks awesome. We've also got some early info on the 3DO or the SMSG. SMSG, really? They were thinking of calling it that? Okay. This was also one of the few early issues of Game Fan that was entirely devoted to gaming and didn't have a poorly drawn comic in it.
Here's the official Dreamcast Magazine for November 2000 with Shampoo on the cover. Shenmue. This magazine cost $8, and that might seem pricey, but it did come with a demo disc every month. This was a great feature that let you try out a lot of games, and if you were on the fence about buying one, the demo could help you decide. This issue had some really good demos, as you can see, a movie of Shenmue, and playable demos of some great games like Check Ride Radio, Gauntlet Legends, and Echo the Dolphin. This page had the control scheme for each game to help you play the demo. Here's a preview of Planet Harriers, which is kind of a sequel to Space Harrier. Sadly, the game never made it outside the arcade, and I think it would have been one of the best games on the DC if it did. Here's a great review for Shenmue, and it scored a 10. Surprise! And rightly so, as we know that Shenmue is one of the greatest games and has secured its spot in the Video Game Hall of Fame. I officially enjoyed the official Dreamcast magazine while it lasted. Only 12 issues total were released, and the last issue didn't have a demo disc. It's still fun looking back on the life of the Dreamcast.
Up next is Egm August 1991, which is issue number 25. The letters page announces the death of the Atari Panther and the birth of the Atari Jaguar, and we all know how popular that went on to become. We also have a shot of Mega Man shooting at the Stage 1 boss from Final Fight for no reason whatsoever. Some of the first Super Nintendo releases are reviewed in this issue, like Super Mario World. Super Mario Bros. 4. Hell, what do I know? Also reviewed is F-Zero, which got some nice scores, but I think it should get all 9s. And then there's Final Fight reviewed right next to Streets of Rage. Ouch. As a Sega fanboy, I love this. They even said that Streets of Rage has music that rivals Sonic the Hedgehog. Weird way to describe it, but okay. Bonk's Revenge, Bonk 2 on the TurboGrafx 16 got slightly better reviews than Final Fight, but I feel it should have got straight 8s. Maybe that's just me. I love this ad for Street Smart. It's like they had the secretary do it with a pair of scissors. And could they have possibly used blurrier screenshots? Gotta run out and buy this one right away. The gaming gossip section talks a little bit more about the 64-bit Atari Jaguar, as well as the Sega CD having scaling, rotation, and other super keep features. It also announced that the Super Nintendo would be releasing on September 1st with Super Mario World packed in at $200. Keep in mind that even though this is the August 91 issue, it was likely in people's hands in early June. There's a page which talks in depth about the upcoming Mega CD and its specs, as well as showing the PC Engine, which has a CD-ROM built in. Also, check out this giant CD-ROM prototype hooked up to a PC Engine here. It's the size of an air conditioner. Actually, it's NEC's new interactive display, which is all about data compression for full motion video. I'm pretty sure that this project eventually turned into the PCFX, which was never released over here. Also, here's a sketch of the Sony Playstation, but this was after Nintendo crushed Sony's dreams and went out with Philips, who made the CDI. The International Outlook section shows off Zelda 3 coming for the Super Famicom, as well as other cool games like Genesis Outrun, Undeadline, Valis 4, and even the Super Graphics version of 1941. This issue also came with the first edition of the Super NES Buyer's Guide. It talked about the system itself, the technology and features, as well as a whole bunch of games. It even reviewed many of them. It also showed what was coming in the future for the system. This issue even had a micro gaming insert, which was all about portable games for the Game Boy, Game Gear, and the Lynx. I wasn't really interested, so I've still never read this part. Oh, and even more import Super Nintendo stuff with more on Zelda 3, which would end up being the best Zelda game ever in my opinion, as well as a few other random games no one cares about. This was also the issue where they reported on the Summer Consumer Electronics Show, which is where the video game industry showed off their stuff before E3 was created. It has a small little section dedicated to each console, showing off the games that they saw at the show. They even showed the ending to the Genesis game Gyarados on the last page. I'm not really sure why some magazines love to show the endings of games. Thanks for the spoiler. But anyway, overall this is a fantastic issue.
Here's EGM for April 1991. Not a real interesting issue, but it did have some items that I found to be entertaining. Reading through the letter section, I came across my name. What? We've mentioned this before in our Nags at Pinball episode, but here's the proof. If you put my name in the password screen, you will be taken to the game's ending. Moving on to the review crew, we see that Shadow Dancer got straight 8s. I think these are fair numbers. The game is great fun. Here's an ad for Musha that didn't appear very often. I guess Seismic didn't have a huge advertising budget. Always entertaining is the gaming gossip page by the Quarterman. This guy was strange, but his gossip was intriguing and always made you wonder. Like here, the Quarterman talks about Sony and Nintendo teaming up to make a Super Famicom CD-ROM, or Pilot Wings being packed in with the Super Nintendo. The Next Wave section had shots of games that were often still being made. Here's one of the first mentions of Street Fighter II, a game a lot of people would be obsessed with, and look! Rotation on the Genesis! Crazy! Another issue of microgaming was added to this issue, though this issue came before the one Joe talked about. Here we have a preview of R-Type for the Game Boy, with maps of stages 1 through 3. Obviously there were huge spoilers, but you know what, I didn't care back then, I just wanted to see lots of games. Another section of EGM that was always great was the International Outlook, where they would show great games releasing soon in Japan. It seems like a lot of these games never made it out of Japan, like Veritex here. But East 3 did, and thank God, because look at these pretty pictures. EGM had some of the best advertisers. How about this ad for Verdict Telereviews, where you can call in and get reviews of games from somebody? Only $1.25 for the first minute and 95 cents for each minute after that. How awesome! Where's my phone? My favorite had to be this ad for the Light Boy. I just can't help thinking of what some of these family members were thinking. Dad's driving and Mom's thinking what her life would be like if she would have married her other boyfriend from high school. The kid in the back playing his Game Boy trying to get the glare off the screen from the Light Boy. And his brother staring blankly out of the window thinking, I wish I was never born. I wish I was never born. Anyways, EGM was a very enjoyable magazine, especially in its early days.
And those are some of the magazines that, well, actually we have 5 more since we've only covered 5.
Yeah, we have 5 more, and hopefully you've stuck with us so far. I mean, this probably might not be the most interesting episode for you.
I like it. Come on. If you guys don't like it, we're going to shut down GameSack forever.
Yeah.
So keep watching. Keep watching. We've got 5 more issues to go.
We're going to be Game Magazine Sack.
One magazine people rarely mention is the all-Sega mag called Mega Play, which was published by EGM. They're all pretty thin. This is the May-June 1991 issue here. This one had a great article about RGB video on the Genesis. From this point on, it was my mission to be able to read that "Don't Walk" sign clearly in Batman. And now I can, thanks to my RGB to component setup I have for almost every system. God, I love retro gaming. There's also a nice coming attraction section which shows off Streets of Rage and is actually excited about Wrestle War. This game never came out in the US and it's a turd, so don't feel bad. It also showed off Ring of Jewels, which would go on to become the legendary game Jewel Master. Okay, it's not legendary, but whatever. This mag also had some reviews done EGM style by Dave, Mike, Gog, and Bart, whoever they are. And on the back cover was an ad for Jesse the Body Ventura Wrestling Superstars for the Genesis. Does anyone have this game? Probably not, since it never came out. You know, I don't even recall seeing any screenshots of it. But I guess DreamWorks was confident enough to place this ad without even having a game to show for it. I would love to see a prototype of this one.
Here is the May 2000 issue of Game Fan with Vagrant Story for the PlayStation gracing the cover, and not a bad choice as that was a fun game. First we come to the Viewpoint section, which is where we get quick bite-sized thoughts and ratings of games coming out soon. This was a slow month indeed, as Tony Hawk 2 for the N64 claimed Game of the Month. Unlike Joe, I actually like Game Fan's layouts. Yeah, at times it was hard to read, but the game pics and art from the games were always eye-catching. I always liked the Coming Soon page after the game reviews for each system. Look here at the Nintendo 64. We have Super Mario Adventure, which, as we know, was actually Paper Mario. Also, Earthbound for the N64? Looking at the quality of the pics shown, it's probably a good idea that this game never finished the development process. Moving on, we find Game Fan Sports. I'm guessing that since not every gamer likes sports games, they put all the reviews and previews in its own section. I like this idea, as I don't like a lot of sports games. I can mow through this section just skimming game titles to see if anything seems interesting and then move on. Then we come to another one of my favorite sections, The Graveyard, where they take a look at one of the great games of the past. This issue has a true gem, Dracula X. Haha, the memories. Game Fan was a great magazine that ended its life with its last issue in December 2000.
Game Players was always kind of a less popular mag. This is the first issue. The paper quality of this magazine was really poor and thin for the first couple of years. Also, since this is their first issue, how do they already have people writing in with questions? Oh, maybe the Game Player strategy guide, I guess? Methinks something's afoot over at Game Players. But this issue did shed some light on the Famicom in Japan and even the disk drive. This was the first time I had ever seen pictures or read descriptions about the unit. Oh look, it's written by Edward J. Semrad. Yep, the same guy that writes for EGM. I love this ad for these Sega games from Mindscape for these various home computers. I always wanted to try them out, but I never had a chance. This issue also features an in-depth interview with Scott Curtis, the kid who played Elliot in TV commercials for the ET video cassette. Scott likes the graphics on the NES and says, "They're totally awesome!" The Nintendo News section talked about Bionic Commando and Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. I've always hated the game screen picture quality in this magazine as it seems washed out. This mag also covered PC games, and in this issue is Hardball. Yay. I like this ad from Lionel Playworld. That used to be such a great store. In fact, I got my Genesis at Playworld. The Sega Masters section talked about Altered Beast, Phantasy Star, and even mentions the upcoming 16-bit Sega machine. Sounds exciting. Hope it'll be good. For some reason, I cut out the Compile logo from this Power Strike title screen picture. I was a very strange kid. There was even an arcade page, and even though I've played Afterburner many times in an arcade, I would just sit there and stare at these still pictures for unhealthily long periods of time. I loved it. The Amiga section made me want one so badly. A friend of mine actually got one, but I don't think he ever got any games for it. The review section was in the back, and they didn't assign any scores to the games. But William R. Trotter here thinks that Golgo 13 is an outstanding game. They had the game news in the very back, and it usually wasn't too exciting and mostly computer related for the first several issues. And in the way back, they had the Gamers Hall of Fame. Are any of you kids watching GameSack right now?
In 2010, Dave Halverson decided to give GameFan another shot. Here is the first issue, and I was excited to have this magazine back. The first thing you'll notice is the size of the issues. The magazine is huge, which I don't like. Sure, it's pretty to look at, but the size is huge, it's cumbersome. I mean, you need a lot more space to view this issue than you did with older magazines. Pretty much everything that was in the original GameFan is back in the new GameFan. Here's a preview for Alan Wake. The layout is good, but you don't get as many screen captures of gameplay that the old GameFan used to have. Viewpoint is back, but this time you only have opinions from 2 editors instead of 3 or 4. Again, you'll notice that the games tend to score on the high side, but that's fine by me. I like it when people are enthusiastic about games. When you get to the actual review of a game, the layout is very pretty with highly detailed pics. Here, Dave Halverson reviews God of War 3. I've always enjoyed Dave's writing style, and he's good at painting pictures in my mind. About 2/3 through the magazine, I got to this page promoting the next issue, and I thought how odd having this page this far from the end of the issue. I turned the page in, everything is upside down, and I immediately thought there was a printing error. As I went a couple of pages, everything was still upside down. I looked at the back cover, and lo and behold, it's another issue. It's Movie Fan? Okay, so the back third of the magazine is Movie Fan, where Dave and the review crew look at movies and such. I like movies, but I don't like them with my video game magazine. Movie Fan stuck around for 2 issues before being removed, and the mag became 100% Game Fan again. Only 9 issues were released, and the last 2 in digital format only. I'm not sure if Game Fan is officially dead, but it's very quiet over on their website.
Video Games and Computer Entertainment is a magazine which I feel should have been a bit more popular in its time. This is the April 1989 issue. I got it at a gas station not too far from Red Rocks, and I still think about this issue whenever I drive by that gas station. It's funny how memory works. The writers of this mag were self-admitted old-timers, so maybe that's why it didn't appeal too much to the younger generation at the time. But hell, I still bought it. In the news bits section, we discovered that Nintendo is suing Camerico over their Freedom Stick design. Nintendo would really love to sue, but the sticks do look pretty similar. The best part about this issue, though, is the sneak peek at the PC Engine. This was the first time I had ever seen pictures of the console itself or any of the games. The pictures were even pretty big, and as far as I know, they didn't take them from a Japanese game mag. I was just in awe reading this article and looking at the pics. I mean, just look at how cool this little system looks. Video Games and Computer Entertainment sure scooped the other mags, even EGM when it came to the PC Engine. I think one of the next issues had a red cover with the TurboGrafx sitting on a car engine. I wish I still had that issue, but I can't find it. Anyway, the reviews section was fairly basic, and they didn't assign scores until later in the magazine's life. I love NES Gauntlet, by the way. This ad from Activision for their Master System games was pretty cool. Activision Power! This issue also mapped out every stage of Life Force for the NES. Another game that was mapped out here was Alex Kidd in Miracle World. This was just what I needed. With this guide and part 2, which appeared in the next issue, I was actually able to beat the game. Very helpful. And of course, as the name of the magazine might imply, computer games were covered as well. This issue also had one of the best Easter eggs ever, a built-in game on the Sega Master System called Snail Maze. I never saw this published in any other magazine. Also, if they publish a tip you send in, they give you $10. EGM promised free games for published tips, but they never sent them. This was an outstanding issue that I'll always have fond memories of.
Well, Joe, that was a great episode, I thought, and you know, I really actually do miss magazines.
I totally do too. I mean, it's fun finding out new information on the internet, but I don't know, there's just something special about reading magazines, even though the information was like 2 or 3 months old at the time. It was just really fun.
Really fun. It's fun having an actual physical something in your face while you're sipping a drink of some sort and flipping through, and you know, I miss those days.
I totally do too, and you know, like Dave alluded to in the intermission, we are going to go straight to covering only magazines, never games again.
Yeah, and probably a lot of strategy guides too. So.
Yeah, just, every other episode will be a strategy guide.
Yeah.
Actually, we're lying out of our ass. We'll be back with games next time. So, in the meantime, thank you for watching GameSack.
Fresh EGM. I've got to call it. This is going to be great. I'm going to call. I'm doing it.
Thank you for calling Verdict Telereviews. The future of video game information is right here at VTR. For players, by players. We've recently updated our manufacturer promotions and much more. For the latest news in the video game industry, press 1. To sound off and record your own message for the video game industry, press 2. For video game reviews, press 3. For the Microsoft Xbox 360, press 2. For the Nintendo Wii U, press 3. For the Sega CD, press 68. For the Super Nintendo Entertainment System, press 69. For the Philips CDI, you have pressed 69 and selected the Super Nintendo Entertainment System. Great choice. What game would you like to hear a review for? To listen to a review of Three Ninjas Kick Back, press 1. To listen to a review of The Seventh Saga, press 2. To listen to a review of Real Monsters, press 0. The Kamikaze Squirrel, press 781. To listen to a review of Zombies Ate My Neighbors, press 782. To listen to a review of Zombies Ate My Neighbors for the Super Nintendo Entertainment System is a ghoulishly good time. It also features two-player action, which you cooperate with a friend, family member, or legal guardian to help save. My Neighbors is one of the most fun and imaginative games of all time and comes highly recommended. Your account has been charged $163. Thank you for calling Verdict Telereviews.
Hey, Joe, I think this is your phone.
Yeah, it is.
See you in 2 weeks, all right?